Hey everyone, been a couple weeks since I posted a video. It's been crazy how busy life has been, I guess, the last couple weeks. I mean, look at this. Pa has been going absolutely wild on Halloween stuff. Half of it's not even shown here. We got a whole bunch more stuff coming next week, actually. I haven't even had time to wash a car in a while, and I want to talk about the Vantage here. I didn't really get to, I didn't really explain much about it in the introduction video, but I've been driving this car basically every day for the last about 2 weeks, I'd say. So this is going to be my roughly 2-month 300-mile review on this car, and I wanted to kind of do one of those wash and talk videos where I talk about the car, how I acquired it, what I think of it, and detail the car for you. So let's get going on that. Actually, before we get started, let me show you real quick. So I really have been driving the hell out of this car. You can see the wheels are just wrecked. Nasty. I got like bird crap all over the place. There's like 7 or 8 spots on there, some in the window here, insides. Drove my kid around a few times, so she is in desperate need of a cleanup. Look at that wheel. I mean, one good thing about silver is that it doesn't really show. You're not going to be able to look at this thing and really see, hey, this thing is pretty dang trashed, but if you look closely, you'll see signs of it actually being used. And I'm saying this because some people think that we don't drive our cars. I mean, we're in Minnesota here, so we really only have, so much time to enjoy these cars every year, maybe 5 months out of the year. And so we are limited. That's one good thing about being in the Midwest. We're limited on how much wear and tear gets put on these cars. That's also a bad thing because, well, we're limited on how much use we can put in the cars. Hopefully y'all can hear me. I don't use this mic very often. One of those wireless mics, but I didn't think my normal mic would have been good for this. So, oh my God, look at this thing is absolutely trashed. So I have washed this vehicle once already and it cleaned up really nice, but I hadn't washed it since it's been used. So I'm curious to see how well this will clean up. As you can see, that coating I put on when I first got it did a pretty good job because most of that stuff was just on the surface. That is Adam's Wheel and Tire Cleaner. It's probably my favorite stuff because it's not, I used to use stuff that was designed specifically for the rubber and then stuff that was designed specifically for the wheels, but this just makes it a little bit more convenient for me than I just have normal car shampoo in the bucket. I want to use the mitt or the brush. I use the mitt. Some of these crevices are pretty tight. All right, so this is a 2023 Aston Martin Vantage. It's the base version. They have I think it's called an F1, which is a little bit more of a track focused version of it. It comes with stiffer suspension, more, I guess you can call them aggressive seats, where I think it's a carbon fiber bucket where it bolsters you a little bit tighter. And I think they tweaked the suspension, maybe, I don't know if they do any mechanical stuff. I don't know if I can't think of there being a performance increase. There might be, there probably is, I'm sure there is. But it's also got a bunch of, aero improvements, like big wings and some louvers here and there, some more ventilation throughout. So there's the base here, there's the F1, and then for a real limited time they came out with a V12 version of this, which they used to have back in, when was that, like 2012 or something like that, I'm just guessing. There's a 12-cylinder version, and then of course they have the convertible versions of all of those models. The V12, it was really limited, I think 330 examples were produced. These are tight brakes. So in other words, this is the the most common. This would be like the, I don't know, I guess like the standard 911 Carrera or something of the Aston Martin lineup, where it is their base. They have other higher end models like the DBS and DB11, and they just announced actually this last week on the 24th the DB11 replacement, which is the DB12. And I put my name on, I didn't put anything down, but I say keep me on the list for when you get an allocation to the dealership that I bought this one from, just out of curiosity. But I want to see them in person. I think they might be too long. What I mean by that is physically too long. I'm not, I mean, despite what some of the cars we have in the stable say, I'm not too crazy on big cars. That's why I like this Vantage style, because it's pretty close to a 911 in size. Actually, I'm gonna move the camera on this side. I kind of get Brembo vibes from these wheels, or these brakes I mean, where they just produce a ton of brake dust. Like, I only have 300 miles on this car, so, and I haven't been pounding on it except for the intro of this video. That was the highest I've ever pushed it. So I haven't been, hard on the brakes or hard on the gas. But they produce just a ton of brake dust, I've noticed. That's all right, it cleans up nice and easy though. With that DB12 getting announced, I don't know if you guys are into Aston Martin. Aston Martin, at least around here, is a very underrated brand. We have one dealership in the whole state actually, and we just got that maybe like 10 years ago or so. Before, otherwise it'd be like Lamborghini. If you have a Lamborghini, you can't, there's no place to service it, or there wasn't until, like 2 years ago. But we don't have like a Lamborghini dealership here. We just got our first Ferrari dealership, which is odd because Minnesotan, there's a lot of wealth and money here in Minnesota. That's why the Porsche and BMW and what else, like Audi dealerships are as successful as they are up here, because that's all that was available, again, until the last decade or so. And I forgot where I was going at with that. These back wheels, the brakes aren't as large, so I'm able to get the woolly in there a little bit easier. I do have this whole car PPF'd as that paint protection film. So when I do kick up rocks, and this thing does kick up rocks because these tires are super sticky, I don't have to worry about chips and such. Is this already chipping actually? I think I already have some chips. Hang on. I might have spoke too soon. The one area that the PPF's not. Some imperfections there. Watch all this surface brake dust come off just with the hose. A little bit of it stayed behind, but that's why it's important to coat your wheels if you can, because it just makes cleaning it that much easier. chips on that side. The barrels. Try to do that one without talking much so you guys can just watch the cleaning process. So when I was shopping for one of these cars, for those who are new to my channel, I ended up trading a 992 911 Turbo S, a 2022 Challenger Hellcat Jailbreak Wide Body Red Eye, that's a long name, and a 2023 Camaro ZL1. And on my 2023 BMW M8 competition, that's you can't see it, but it's off camera. It's over there behind us. And I did that so I could kind of free up some debt. I was getting a little over my head on finances and stuff, so I was like, you know what, I don't need these many cars, whatever. So I sold those three for the one, and my debt went from a lot to a very little. But not much longer. Obviously, I had seller's remorse, basically as they were driving off the parking lot here. And I don't know, I tried buying some of the cars back, but they sold the 992 pretty quick. Obviously, those are cars that are very hard to get, especially at the spec that I put together. It's a beautiful spec. Speaking of that car, I got a notice about 2 weeks ago for some unpaid toll bills. Someone's driving that car in New York right now, just blaring through the tolls with my plate on there. It's not registered yet. So I had to show proof of that I no longer own the car. But anyway, had seller's remorse from selling that one. I tried buying the Challenger back, but they had it listed for like $20,000 over what they paid me for it. And they kept on telling me that, like, oh no, we're not. They're actually kind of pricks about it. It's hard to get a hold of. They had attitude every time I called them, but I tried buying the car back, and they said, no, we're not in a position to wholesale it all yet. I'm like, I'm not trying to wholesale, I'm trying to buy it back. I'm the one who owned the car. You paid me X amount for it. I'm trying to see if I can buy that back from you. And we played that game with them for, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 months. And then I finally gave up on it because a local dealership was able to get me an allocation for not a red eye, but a normal Challenger jailbreak wide body that I actually just got confirmation of a build just last week. Actually, I got 2 confirmations. I think they put in 2 orders for me because we were having trouble getting them to confirm the orders. Something to do with the stripes not being available. I'm doing I won't tell you guys the spec just yet. But I'm doing a color that I haven't had with a stripe that I have had. And for the longest time, the build was in like a hold position because they were struggling on something with those stripes. So that's why I built the second one, and apparently both of them went through. So we got 2 coming in. I think my pa might take one actually if finances are good. So those might come in yet this year, if I had to guess, probably towards the end of the year. But that's what's going to replace the Challenger that I regretfully sold. Speaking of that Challenger, I saw it just the other day. Man, silver cleans up so nice. Look at that beading action. Forgot that I had bugs all over the front of this car too. So speaking of that Challenger, I actually saw it going home the other day. I stopped by the bank, went to the ATM, and I look up as I'm waiting for the car in front of me to finish his transaction, and I'm like, hey, that's a sick looking Challenger. It looks very familiar. So I took a photo. I was thinking, no way that's my car. It's way too much of a coincidence that it's in this small town restaurant. But I sold it to a neighborhood or a dealership whose neighborhood was, like 100 miles away. But I get a closer look, and sure enough, it was my Challenger. This is Adam's Mega Foam, and as the name suggests, it gets extremely foamy. So after I saw my Challenger, I got their notification the following, it was the day before. It was right around there about my build coming to life. So That's good news. Still no news on the ZL1 replacement. I did order after selling that 2023, that white one that had that weird paint imperfection, which I went to the auto show in Minneapolis here. It seems to be a common thing with Chevys that the painted parts don't fully match the plastic parts, I should say, don't fully match the aluminum parts that are painted. Different material, I suppose. So no word on the ZL1 replacement with the ZL1, but it is going to be a 1LE package, so it'll be a lot more badass. All right, let me talk about this Vantage a little bit. So I've been driving it daily for a couple weeks now. I got just over 300 miles on it. I don't drive a whole lot of places. Don't go to car shows very often. Don't really take it on the highway. I just drive to work and back. It's a very enjoyable drive to work and back. You saw in the intro that this thing's got some power, and I'm glad it materialized like this. So this is, I've mentioned already, this is a 2023 Aston Martin Vantage. It's got a Mercedes-sourced V8 twin turbo. I think just over 500 horsepower, 8-speed automatic, pushing the rear wheels only. It kind of, the transmission is much better than basically anything American that I can think of except for that GT500. I haven't put much time into that because unlike the GT500, this is something that okay, so I said earlier that, Minnesota, we have maybe 5 months out of the year that we can drive these cars and enjoy them. I want to put most of that time on this car, I think, because a few reasons. One being, this is a car that I can easily replace, if that makes sense. Kind of like the M8. There's always going to be a new M8 coming out, and allocations are pretty plentiful on those. And to replace this, if you wanted to build one, it'd only take, maybe you have to find a dealership that has an allocation. But it's not going to take, like the 911 that my dumbass got rid of. It's not going to take 2 years to replace it. But also, there are some flaws in this car that I pointed out in that first video that, I debated repainting the door, and I debated all this stuff, but we just touched it up the best that we could, and I put some clear wrap over it. It's not perfect, but whatever, that's kind of my point. This is one of those few cars that we have here that I'm not gonna, lose sleep by putting so much miles on it. I know that sounds silly, and some of you guys probably think I'm crazy, but I know some of you guys will also understand that you don't wanna put, daily miles on these cars. That's brings me back to like the Minnesota, limitations that we have on driving these type of cars, is that they do, we have literally half the opportunity as like someone from Florida, for example, to drive a car like this. So I found this car from Napleton Aston Martin in Chicago. I first got in touch with them back in, when was that? It was probably like 2021, I want to say, maybe 22, might have been fairly recent. And what they had was a 2000 and, what was that? Maybe a 12 Vantage V12. Or no, it wasn't that. It was a, God, what was it? It wasn't a Vantage V12. They have one of those right now, I think. DB9, DBS. It was an older one. And it was one of those bodies that, kind of like the Vanquish, it's just timeless. And what attracted me to this one was the color. It was white. I love white cars. But more importantly, the mileage. It was only had like 1,200 miles on it. I think it was 10 years old, 1,200 miles, so it was in really good condition. Trying to finance something like that is a lot harder than trying to finance a new car, for example, because you're paying what the dealership thinks it's worth, not what the book value is really, especially back in 2022. Numbers were completely far off from what they should be. So cars that were selling for 50 grand were selling for 60 grand, in other words. And this was kind of like that too. It was more than that, obviously, but I had a little bit of trouble finding someone to finance it for me, mainly because I wasn't willing to put down like 50 grand cash because I don't have that. More importantly, the let's back up. I was able to find someone, I forget who it was, who was willing to finance that. I only had to put like 10,000 down. I figured just access my loan, get the car I want, whatever. And we were like an hour away from finalizing everything, and I had the sales lady, I was like, hey, do me one favor, give it a real extreme thorough walk around, try to find any chips, imperfections, flaws that you can. And she found one. So I think I lucked out, because I would have been frustrated as hell if I spent that much money on a car. Granted, it is used, but you know, I'm not going to spend money on a car with a known flaw. So, you know, I ended up backing out on the deal, but I kept in touch with that dealership ever since. So it's kind of good timing between me having seller's remorse and them having this car that you see here. And so I inquired about it. This is on their new lot. This is again during the peak, or I should say the end of dealerships having or not having inventory. You know, if you guys look at, I'm constantly looking at cars, not to buy out necessarily, but just because I want to just see what's out there. And you'll notice that the trend over the last couple of years was inventory is pretty scarce, and that's also including these higher end cars. So to find something like this is not as common as like a GT500, for example, but it's or not as uncommon, I mean, as finding a GT500, but it was still pretty special to find. So anyway, looking at it, getting pictures, getting some personal videos of it, and had them, you know, do the walk around, how's it look and stuff like that. Didn't see the flaws, unfortunately. Well, that might have deterred me from moving forward with it. So we came up with a price. It was like $5,000 off MSRP, which again, the last couple of years, really nothing was below MSRP. It was at MSRP or above. You're seeing even just generic cars like Rams and stuff going for unbelievable amounts, like used trucks going for almost more than new trucks. What the hell's going on? But so I was pretty happy with getting the agreement set to where it would be, I'm getting a slight discount on the car. So we're getting ready to finalize everything. And I asked for one more thing before we do. I was like, hey, they're in Chicago, I'm in Minneapolis. I said, would you guys deliver the car to me also? Meaning pick up the tab to have it shipped. I know dealers get better rates than like I would, for example. So I knew it was something they could probably do, but it was kind of a stretch. I'll come back to that comment here in a second. So during all this, you know, getting paperwork ready to sign, schedule's busy, so I think I was at like a soccer game or something. During all this, I get a call from my BMW dealer, and his name's Sean. He goes, yo, hey Chris, that iX you ordered, the iX that you guys have seen that, I think, but I traded that Taycan in on last winter. It finally came in, so I was like, oh no. This is, I knew it was gonna come in soon, but I didn't know it was gonna come in like right then. So this is kind of unfortunate timing. So I let the Aston Martin dealership know, like, hey, I had an iX on order. We were talking for like probably like a week at this point. So we're getting kind of like personal with each other, and I think I told her about the iX I had on order. But anyway, so I called her, I was like, hey, this just came in. Sorry, this is really bad timing. I'm not gonna be able to finance the iX. Should I get approval for financing on the iX? And then, you know, 5 minutes later, get approval for financing on this. So I'll let you know if I end up not getting the iX, we can, you know, proceed with this or whatever. So I go to BMW dealership, and iX is just badass. The interior color is not what I thought, so I considered bailing on it, but I was like, you know what, this is sweet. We're gonna continue. So I bought the iX, and I let Aston Martin know, like, hey, thank you for your efforts and help, but we're gonna bypass on this. And she asked the question, I've mentioned this in one of my videos before, the best time, in my opinion, to buy a car is February 28th. I say that because it's a short month, it's the start of a new year, it's just beginning of the season, actually not even the beginning of the season, it's still it's the end of the season actually. So I was like, you know what, I really appreciate your help. We're gonna take one more crack at this. And I hate to say it, but I lowballed them pretty good. So I already had like a $5,000 discount and free freight. And I was like, all right, in order to make this work, I need to pay X amount out the door. So what I mean by X amount out the door is, I mean, I'm not going to pay this more than this amount, including taxes, including delivery. And it ended up coming up to like almost a $14,000 discount off of MSRP, maybe like $15,000. Because, you know, I didn't trade anything on this car, so I'm paying tax on the MSRP, or the purchase price, in other words. So taxes were huge. So one final last-ditch effort to not get out of the deal, but see if I can make the deal more in my favor. I gave him that offer, and within like 10 minutes, they accepted. So being a little shocked that they accepted, because we were just kind of fighting for like $5,000 not too long ago. I'm a man of my word. I said I would do it, so I did it. And I'm really glad I did, because I've really enjoyed this car for the last few weeks that I've been driving it. During those couple weeks I've been driving it, this thing turns a lot more heads than I thought it would. So I'm a big car guy. I also don't really care to drive something really flashy. That's why you don't see, you know, lime green Lamborghinis or anything, you know, bright yellow McLarens and stuff like that in the stable. It's all, except for the Corvettes, all pretty neutral colors, especially my cars. And this thing turns a lot more heads than I thought it would. I mean, yeah, I know what it is, but I don't expect people around here, I guess, to really know what it is, because again, Aston Martin's not very common around here, but I've seen quite a few actually recently, so I think it might be becoming more popular. One thing I really like about this car is, unlike the American cars that we got, this thing does not creak at all. Like even that door shut, I don't know if you heard that. It's just so smooth. I think it's a pretty underrated car, in my opinion. Well, I suppose how underrated could it be when they charge what they charge, actually, so never mind that. Okay, so I'll probably do this off camera, and then one, because it's so loud, and I'll pick the camera back up once that's done. My God, look at the size of this hood. Okay, so the final stages of drying it, I like to use graphene CS3, just as an aid. That's what caused all that slickness that you guys saw when I rinsed it off. I don't need to do anything in here, I suppose. The size of this hood spans the entire width of the car. All right, it's kind of a weird mechanism here, because it's got two latches that it releases from. I suppose I can clean under here just to kind of freshen it up. The build quality of these Aston Martins is almost unmatched. This is my first Aston Martin, not my first experience with one. We've had 2 Vanquishes in the past, and just the interior quality and the materials that they use are just very high end, as it should be for what these things sell for. You know, it's kind of like, what's the other, Bentley, they're the other British car manufacturer that we see around here, and those things are very expensive, and I don't know if those are much better than like Mercedes, for example. But you think that they would be for the price, but I can tell from experience with this one now that build quality is very, very good. Except for the paint. I mean, paint's not bad, don't get me wrong. This likely happened at the dealership that I bought it from, but there are a few flaws that I showed you guys all in that first video that I really wish were not there. But because they are there, and because this isn't going to be a forever car, I have no problem putting some miles on her. Well, this just shuts with force, just like that. You can tell a lot by how a car sounds when it shuts. Listen to this. Just solid. That's one thing I've noticed too while driving this around. You know, I'll drive, well, even like the i4, But for sure the GT500, for sure the ZL1, and for sure the Challenger, those American muscle cars, you know, everything rattles. You shut the door, the whole thing goes, and you're driving down the street and, you know, you just hear creaks, and I don't know if it's settling or what, but you just hear it all the time in those cheaper American cars. Not at all in this car, which is good, as expected, you know. It's not a cheap car. Is there some shit on this? A little bit of dust or something on this towel. Okay, so as I was saying when I was washing the car, just like the GT500, you don't need to accept what a dealership is selling a car for, not just what they're asking for it. You see dealerships post cars all the time, especially nowadays, the high-end Porsches and Lamborghinis and Ferraris and stuff like that. They're all selling. When I say selling, I mean they're all asking over MSRP on them. From experience, the cost that price that they sold the 992 Turbo S at, you know, they probably made 30 grand on that car compared to what I was willing to accept for it, which was essentially what I paid for it. So although I didn't lose any money, they just had a better reach and probably had the car pre-sold, to be honest. Besides, for those rare instances, especially on new cars, you can haggle and negotiate with the dealerships, just like I have for the last 10 years. None of these cars we paid over MSRP on. Most of them, except for the Ferrari, I think that's it. Yeah, even the Viper we got a discount, R8 discount, 0-1. I think we paid MSRP on the 0-1, but we got a discount. I bought a Camaro SS at the time of buying that, so we got a discount on that, plus free delivery. It was out of state. I don't know about this towel. Some weird crap on it. Touched on this earlier, but Aston Martin did just release the DB12 on the 24th, so a couple days ago. And I'm super excited to see that because they finally updated the infotainment system, that screen in the center. They finally updated that to something of this millennium, because they've been borrowing Mercedes tech for the last, well, I don't know, 10 years maybe. And that's fine, because Mercedes has good tech, but the tech that they're still using is from 10 years ago, so it's very dated, pretty slow, not that great of graphics, and it's been long overdue for an upgrade. So I think that they actually developed it themselves this time, you know, kind of like BMW does with the iDrive system, and I think that's what it's called, where car manufacturers just develop their own infotainment system, get a better UI than what they had from the previous generation. It's nice to finally see. And I think that tech will carry over to all the future Aston Martin cars. I think the DBX might already have it. Actually, I doubt it. I think I would have seen that. I could be wrong. But I know the new Vantage coming out in a year or so, which I'm seeing some teaser pics online. And this looks nice and all, but that looks much nicer. Like these headlights, for example, they're kind of come back a little bit, like up here, and they're less. Dad's got the Vanquish, but they're less flat looking like this, and that was one of the things that some people, including myself, didn't really care for on this car. It doesn't look bad by any means, but if I had a choice, I would have changed these headlights up a little bit. I think they're sticking with the same power plant, which is again borrowed from Mercedes, but it's their AMG division, so you know it's good. Nothing wrong with a twin turbo V8, that's for sure. I'm pretty positive in that intro clip I broke loose a little bit, even though I was already in, I think, what, second gear or third gear maybe? So I think when the time comes when the new Vantage is released, I might try to trade this guy in on it. I just noticed that these windshield wipers come in the opposite direction. Most wipers, you know, they come one way, like two of them go like this. This one looks like it kind of folds in on itself. I don't use my wipers, so I'll never know. That's what it looks like, for sure, because the arms are on the outside. That's kind of cool. Circling back on me being surprised at how much this car stands out is I've gotten several comments, even from neighbors, like, what is that car? Like, I've never seen something like that. Or a lot of people, I'll go downtown in my city here and I'll hear, like, you know, kids as I'm walking away, like, oh, that's an Aston Martin. It's like, wow. I mean, maybe I'm just naive to think that this wasn't as recognizable or Is naive the right word? Maybe I was just a little bit blind to not realize that this is more of a recognizable car than what it actually is. Not that it's a bad thing. I mean, you know, it's not bad that people know what this is. At night, this car looks really sharp too. Kind of stealthy looking. I love the silhouette of the Vantage. That's one thing that's pushing me away from the DB12 and did push me away from the DB11, even though there's, I mean, they're a lot more expensive than this, about twice as much actually. I'm more of a fan of the two-door, two-seat coupes than I am the 4 and 4. You know, the M8's a big car, and so is the Challenger, but the GT500, that has back seats too, I suppose, but they're really, really small, kind of like the ZL1. They're almost unusable. Man, I'm getting fat, I'm getting out of breath. I like the look of these two-door coupes more. So who knows, maybe I'll see the DB12 and think otherwise, but my gut tells me to stick with the Vantage for a year or so. Get some more use out of it. I can trade in at like a couple thousand miles or something, which is pretty good for me. Almost done with this. Then we'll get to the inside. Where I park for work, there's always like barn swallows and such that fly around. So this thing just got destroyed by the birds. These little bumperettes are still weird to me. I want to take them off. I don't know if they look better body colored. I kind of like that they're two-tone, but I hate gloss black on cars. Even though it looks good, I just hate it because it's a nightmare to keep perfect. As soon as I wipe, you know, you're installing scratches. Unless it's PPF like this is, then it's all good. What is this? Alright, it's the same, must be normal. Let's get to the inside now. I might do this off camera too because it's just loud. So as I was drying it and cleaning the inside, I wanted to talk about some things that I don't necessarily care for about the car. I've already commented on a few of these things. You can probably guess what they are. It's not a whole lot. And I want to also comment on things that stand out to me. We'll start with the first handful of things that I can think of that I don't necessarily care for. One of which, first one being the headlights. They don't look bad to me, but I think they could have done a little bit better. Maybe it's the shape. Now that I'm backing up here, they look pretty damn good. So I actually don't know if I would consider that as being a bad or negative thing. I'm excited to see what they come up with in the future. I don't have the Vanquish here to compare it to, but like say right here, they just look kind of small, right? Almost like they're, I don't know, like they're either too wide or too small. The shape is odd. It gets distracted by this awesome looking bulge in the hood, but something about the headlights just throws me off a little bit. Coming around the side here, I don't know why they have this little polish piece like that. You think that would be factory black or body color. Black would be probably preferred, even though I hate gloss black. But because that's an option, I think that they could have done something. I mean, it's the only piece on the car that's like that. That little polished aluminum. I'm not really sure if that's the proper name for it, but you know, there's no other piece like that on the car. Come around the back again. These bumperettes, I don't hate them. I mean, the more I look at them, the more I don't hate them. But I wish that they weren't as out so much, which kind of defeats the purpose. But you see, I don't know, they just kind of stand out to me as being a little bit annoying. And then on the inside, the infotainment system. Focus. There we go. Turn that on. Infotainment system is very out of focus going on here. There we go. It's very outdated. Like radio, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just Mercedes quality from, again, the early 2000s. Even this dial, like, yeah, it's just not very good. I come up to the car, for example, I don't know, it's just not good. It's not bad by any means, but they should have updated this 5+ years ago. Dash looks fine to me. This area took a little bit of getting used to because it's a lot of buttons, but now that I've been driving it every day for a few weeks, it's been very easy to get used to things. All right, which brings me on to, there's a lot more pros to this than there are cons, obviously. First one, since I'm here, these aluminum paddle shifters. These things are awesome. They don't stick to the steering wheel, they stick to the column itself. So if you turn, you know, from 12 to 9, these stay in their spot, which, I mean, maybe be good if they're on the steering wheel because, you know, it goes with you, but I don't know, I like having them stationary so you always know where they're going to be, right? The quality of the inside here, look at this door sill. Normally you'd see this just covered in plastic. There isn't an ounce of plastic on this thing. It's either carpet, metal, or this kind of rubber gasket here that they have. The quality of the interior of this Aston Martin is unmatched. I mean, the BMWs are nice, Ferraris are nice, but this, honestly, I think puts it all to shame. Like even this frameless mirror, just, I don't know, everything about this car, just the quality is incredible. Look at this leather dash. They pay so much attention to even like the stitching on here. I think the new one is going to be recessed, the new screen, but just look at this quality and everything. Even down here, like this is the only really plastic on the inside. This is soft material. This is plastic. Like right here is leather wrap. There's a little leather wrap knee pad here. Even the damn cup holders, a nice soft touch. Inside the storage here is nice and padded. The audio system, I think they're getting away from Bang & Olufsen, which is very high end, but they don't identify it as B&O, but I know it is. I'd give it surprisingly, like I love Bang & Olufsen. I've had those speakers in my house before. I've had their headphones, and B&O is known for being a very high quality audio system, but in here it's not very good. The glass isn't too pain, but it's very clean sounding on the inside. You don't get a whole lot of road noise. You hear the engine, but that's about it. You hear that piston on the door. So I can get this on. It's just a nice shot. If you haven't guessed already, I'm big on how a car sounds, both when it's running and when it's not. And I like the quality of how things feel and how things move. Like even the door, the mechanism, how smooth it operates and how nice it shuts. That's big for me too. The ass end is the absolute best part of this car. At night, this whole strip lines up when you apply the brakes, and the reverse light at the bottom here is just one individual LED, or one section I should say, and it's extremely bright. You can see that from a quarter mile away, I bet. This angle right here is just, I fall in love with it every single time. Look how wide it looks from behind. This is supposed to compete with the 911s and stuff like that. Some people compare it to the 911 Turbo. I would never do that because it's not even in the same ballpark as that, but like a GTS or a Carrera S, I would probably take this hands down. That's coming from a Porsche fanboy. We don't have, well, I suppose we got, Pa has his 911, but we're missing Porsche from the stable, and we went from having like 6 to 1, and so I'm a huge Porsche fanboy. We got this Porsche Charger over here. I got Porsche Crest all over the place, and I would take this over just a standard 911 Carrera S. Not like a GTS or a GT3 or Turbo S, but over just a normal, what this is supposed to compete with, Carrera S and stuff like that. I would take this over that any day. I like how Aston has gone with this larger grille. I think they're even getting larger as, well, the Dbs Grille is massive. This looks big compared to the Vantage, or Vanquish I mean, but they're even getting bigger. And I think a good big grille is attractive, like the R8 for example, and the GT500. I love a good massive, like in your face grille. And that's about it. It sounds great. Oh, I mentioned this bulge already. The lines from here are awesome. I'm not sure why this one doesn't have any vents on the hood. I've seen some that have 2 vents right here in the base coupe, not just the F1. And I've seen obviously some like this where they don't. I've seen some where the vents are like way back here, I think. I could be wrong, but I kind of wish this had more vents on the front, kind of like the DB9, DBS, things like that. My first 300-mile, 2-month experience with the Aston. It's making me want to get another one, honestly. I'm going to drive the hell out of this thing for the next few months. And when the next generation Vantage comes in, I intend on building one and trading this, maybe one other car. We'll see what my finances look like at the time, because I got the Challenger coming in, and it should have a ZL1 coming in at the same time. So I might need to trade 1 or 2 cars in for it, but I think having a Vantage or an Aston in the stable is an awesome, I guess you can call it an accomplishment. You know, these things are very nice and expensive, but I think it's a nice addition. That's probably the proper word. Added to the stable. Just a few small things that I mentioned that I don't care for, such as the infotainment system that's being updated. This is an option. You can have that painted black. This is an even option. You can have this little inlet here as a contrast and color to the car, but I think it looks pretty good matching. But anything that I fault this car with is being corrected in the next generation, or one that I would build. I'm not sure if I would pick this color again, because some angles it looks not pink, but pretty light. This looks great from this angle, but they have another color called magnetic silver. I think it's not as dark as the, what is this, GT500, but not as light as this. Maybe a little bit more gray than the Viper. I used to have a car, maybe I think a little bit darker than the Ram, I'd say. something like that. When driving this too, you probably saw in the intro, there's no delay at all. I mean, it's a V8 turbocharged, and unlike some turbocharged cars, you get that slight delay. Like, what's an example? Maybe the no, the M8's pretty damn fast. I got no examples right now, but you probably know what I'm talking about. The turbo lag. Some cars have it worse than others. This surprisingly doesn't have it at all. And I probably give that praise to Mercedes for developing such a nice power plant that works really well with this car. But let me know what you guys think of this car. Have you guys seen the new 2024 teaser pics? You'll know what I'm talking about, where they're enhancing some of the exterior features. And if you saw the DB12, you'll see the new interior infotainment. And I think they're going to end up carrying that over to all their future cars for moving forward. I do keep tossing around the idea, because you see I got the i4 back here, I got the iX in my house. EVs are becoming more and more attractive, I guess, to me. Driving an iX all the time, I drive my wife's Wagoneer, and it's just slumbersome. And I can't wait for her to get like a 3-row EV that hopefully doesn't break the bank. But what I'm getting at is I wonder what Aston Martin's going to come out with when it's time for them to introduce their own EV sports car to the industry. As expected, I'm assuming it's going to be extremely remarkable, and the quality is probably going to be out of this world, so I'm really excited for that. Give you guys a quick shot of the ladies. Pa's got the Vanquish right now and the F12. I think all these cars need a bath, actually, except for the i4 and I think the Porsche. I think everything else needs a bath. Maybe I'll take one of these cars today. I need to get some fresh fuel in some of them. I put fresh gas in the ZR1 for the first time in a couple of years, just about a month or two ago. All right, guys, I wanted to get a quick video out there for you. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Just a quick wash and talk. First 2 months experience with the Vantage, 300 miles on it. So not a whole lot of use, because again, I don't do a whole lot of driving, but at least you got my opinion of the first couple months of the car. I expect some more videos coming up. My schedule's been pretty busy for the last 2 months or so. We got Halloween crap up the ass. I'm not going to film too much of that. I'll film it more towards Halloween time, but just, you know, between kids' activities and work, it's just been pretty crazy trying to get some of these videos done. Oh man, I got to clean up here still. It's 1:10. I'll probably end this video here. Hope you guys like that. There's a short but quick wash and talk of my thoughts on the new Vantage. I really like it. I'm looking forward to see what Aston Martin comes out with next. I'm going to continue driving this for probably the rest of the season, putting minimal miles on things like the GT500, because this is going to be a collector and a keeper for me. But I do want to get fresh gas, and these two definitely need it. The 911 needs it. I put fresh gas when I stored it last time. This got gas the other week. R8 needs gas. M8, that's going to be a driver too. That'll be a keeper. Everything else, the Viper, I don't want to put a whole lot of use on that, because that's, who knows what's going on with those. Let me know what you think. As always, I appreciate you watching. Have a great Memorial Day, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.